Hello, boys and girls. I'm Uncle John from Your Story Hour, and we're back for another chapter from the book Loony Coon by Sam Campbell. Aunt Carole, Aunt Nikki, and I are so excited to be bringing this book to you, and we really love hearing from you. So thank you for your emails and all the comments you're leaving on the YouTube posts that we send you. Keep sending those, and we promise we'll keep bringing you all the chapters of Looney Coon until we're completely done with the book. So, without any more wasted time, let's get to chapter number 4 of Looney Coon, called Winged Danger for Looney Coon. Our next adventure with Looney Coon was a bit frightening. It came on one of those silent, mystery-soaked nights which nature compounds occasionally. Moonbeams make the world strange, and the forest bears a touch of fantasy. Ginny and I were out in our canoe, the only mode of travel in harmony with the mood of the moment. Resting our paddles, we floated motionlessly on the mirrored waters between our island and the shore where Cooney Castle stands. Despite the bright moonlight, a few stars peered through to add the loveliness of their twinkling eyes to the evening, and intermittently meteors traced their paths through the heavens with fading fingers of light. Then there was a presence in the air, close over our heads. We heard the soft, breathy sound of wings as some creature of great size swept by. The fleeting form of a large bird was etched against the sky. "What was that?" Jenny asked in a whisper. "I believe it was an owl," I replied. "As large as that?" "Yes, the great horned owl has a wingspan up to 5 feet. That may have been one." My thought was confirmed a few minutes later when from out of the black shadows of the mainland came a piercing cat-like cry, the hunting call of the great horned owl. "Oh, what an eerie call!" Jenny exclaimed. "It gives me goose pimples." "That seems to be the purpose," I said. "It spreads fear among the small animals of the forest. When they're bewildered with fear, they're easy victims for the owl." "He's a great hunter, isn't he?" "The greatest among predatory birds. He's called by nature students the tiger of the air. As a fighter and predator, he's supreme." "Do men like him?" Jenny asked. "Well, from the human view, he's both good and bad. Much of his food consists of mice, rats, and other small creatures who increase to harmful numbers unless controlled. The trouble is, he develops fancy and specialized tastes. Occasionally, a great horned owl decides he's going to live on domestic fowl, chickens, ducks, guinea hens. That puts him in bad with the farmer. Other kinds of owls are benefactors of mankind, but this fellow gets wrong ideas about his food, so he's an outlaw as far as men are concerned." We had been speaking in low voices. In the distance, we could trace the movements of the owl by his repeated call. He was quiet for a few minutes, and then the call came from a point on the dark shore in the vicinity of Cooney Castle. "Would he harm Looney Coon?" Jenny asked anxiously. "Indeed he would, if he got the chance." "But Andrea could protect her young, couldn't she?" "I believe so. Yet the owl is a fierce fighter." The cry of the owl came again, and our concern mounted. Sound travels far on a silent night. We heard something like the breaking of twigs, and I began paddling, directing the canoe toward Cooney Castle. "Let's hurry," Jenny urged, stroking strongly at the bow. "I've the feeling we're needed there." We ran the canoe aground at the nearest point convenient to the raccoon tree. As we did, the big owl took to wing from the top of a nearby hemlock. Doubtless he had discovered the home of the raccoons. Perhaps a tragedy had already occurred. I knew it was unlikely that he would raid the nest itself, inside the tree, but the possibility that Looney Coon had been caught outside concerned me. I tried to catch the owl in the ray of my flashlight to see whether he had game in his talons, but he was too fast and vanished into the darkness. "Looney Coon! Looney Coon!" moaned Jenny as she hastened over to the tree, climbed up on the log, and looked in. "Andrea isn't here," she reported. "No doubt hunting," I replied. "How many are there?" They're so tangled I can hardly tell, she returned. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 noses. But Sam, none of these little ones has a floppy left ear or white on his head. Loony Coon is gone. Oh, just let me get my hands on that owl. She stepped down and looked into the trees as if she meant to take off after him at once. My flashlight. I flashed my light about the ground, looking for evidence of a struggle. The usual raccoon tracks were at the base of the tree, nothing more. Then we heard a slight rustling a few feet away in a pile of brush. Something was moving about. Quickly, we went to the spot and looked in among the branches. "It's he!" exclaimed Jenny delightedly. "It's Loony Coon. Come out here, you little scamp. Don't you know there's a big owl just looking for the likes of you? Oh, why do you leave your nest when your mother isn't around?" Loony Coon, now in the full ray of our flashlight, had grown since we last saw him. His eyes were open. He was still fat, awkward, and comical looking, and very much a baby. Jenny was reaching for him when I restrained her for a moment to look at something I had discovered. Over an area of 4 or 5 feet, the leaves had been blown back, and there were plain marks where wingtips had struck the sand. Twigs were broken in the brush pile at this point, and there were several deep gashes cut in heavy limbs. "What does it mean?" Jenny asked. "The owl undoubtedly made a try for him," I exclaimed, interpreting the marks. "The bird came down here with much force, breaking the twigs and beating the ground with his wings. He bit into these branches with his beak. Only the brush saved Loony Coon, and perhaps the owl would have got him anyway if we hadn't arrived when we did." "Oh, Loony Coon!" Jenny reached into the brush and brought him out by the loose skin of his neck. "What can I do to make you realize the danger you've been in?" She snuggled him in her arms. "Listen to that, Loony Coon," she added, shaking him a little. The owl had just called back in the black forest. "Don't you understand the bird is inviting you to dinner? Only you'd be the dinner. You must stay in your nest when your mother isn't around. If you don't—" She didn't finish the sentence. Loony Coon had begun chirping. Jenny touched the end of his nose with her finger, and he immediately took it in his mouth and tried nursing on it. She carried him over and placed him in his nest. "Let's stay right here and guard him from that owl," she suggested. "It would be a 24-hour job each day," I replied. "Are owls about in the daytime too? I always heard they could only see at night." "Owls see very well at night, but they see and hunt in the daylight too," I replied. "I'm afraid Loony Coon must meet his own problem." Jenny was silent for a moment, looking thoughtfully in the direction from which we could hear the owl. "Sam," she said, "I've never wanted to destroy anything, but I wonder if we shouldn't destroy that owl. It would be awful if he caught Loony Coon." "That thought came to me too," I answered, "but we can't do it. This is a game sanctuary, and all living things are protected here. Anyway, that owl is merely carrying out his part in the forest scheme. It's just unfortunate that his hunting habits threaten animals in which we have special interest. Listen, there's his other call." Out of the night came the eerie, hollow tones generally referred to as hoots. They echoed through the dark chambers of the forest and then died away, leaving the silence deeper than ever. "I wouldn't want a forest without that voice," I said. "Something of the wilderness would be gone. Nature must have predators as well as non-predators, you know." "Yes, I know," Jenny said, unconvinced. "But do we have to stand by and see animals that we are personally friends with caught and destroyed? Our pets bring joy to so many people. They're more important than just a meal for some old owl." "Yes, I'm sure you're right," I agreed. "We would be justified in protecting them in every way we can. But we can't destroy that owl. Maybe we can discourage him so that he'll hunt somewhere else. But At that, we were interrupted by the return of Andrea. She came right up to us and accepted some peanuts from our hands. While she was eating, the owl called again. Instantly, Andrea stopped eating, rose on her hind feet, and peered into the night. Then she went hastily into Cooney Castle. As she entered, a chorus of chirping greeted her, silenced a moment later when dinner began. We didn't tell Andrea that we had found Loony Coon outside the nest, and thus likely saved him from another trip to the woodshed. She knows more about that owl than we do, I commented to reassure Jenny as well as myself. I feel certain she'll be on her guard. We paddled back to our island in silence. The night sparkled with muted glory. Deep in the black woods the owl called, rhythmically, monotonously, ominously. And that's the end of chapter 4. Come back next time, and Aunt Nikki is going to bring you chapter 5. Also, keep checking back to the Your Story Hour website, and from time to time, we'll post another coloring page for you to work on. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.